turning stories of hurt into stories of hope. Join with us by calling 303-477-2473. Now, here's Angie Austin with the good news.
It's so fun to hear the good news because I did news for so many years, and now to actually talk about good news is such a thrill for me. Hi, everybody. It's Angie Austin. You probably remember me from the news. I did that for about 21 years. I had so many people come up to me and say, Angie, you know what? I watched your show, I like it and everything, but I think that the news is really depressing and I have a hard time watching it because it brings me down. I can relate to that because some of the stories really hurt my heart to read and they would bother me. And as a Christian mom, the stories about the kids sometimes would just yank at my heart. So I wanted to do a show that would be more uplifting and about healing. And as I told you yesterday, because of my difficult background growing up, I wanted to offer people hope and healing and inspiration because I feel like I've overcome a lot. And I also hope that I can help you have a couple of laughs because I think that's always fun to do as well. Yesterday we had laughs because Paul, my producer, had, a difficulty with the whole radio part of the job. Was that what
Yeah, the radio part of the job.
Because at the beginning of the show, you couldn't hear us, which I told Paul, it's like that's part of the gig, dude. They have to be able to hear us.
Thought they could just read your mind, know what you were going to think.
I did put your picture up on Facebook. I said if there are any technical difficulties today, that Paul, the producer, this is his picture, and I wanted to let you know that Mel says her reply is he's hot.
Well, I don't know what to say to that.
No, I have to be honest with you. I've never thought of you that way. But
okay, well that's fine.
All right, so this show is about hope and healing and inspiration. And I told my 6-year-old Riley, because you've got little kids too, Paul, 3 and 5, right?
Yes.
I told him that I had to go to work because I had a job. And he said, that's good because now you'll make monies again. Monies, plural. I said, yes, that's true. And he said, I think your show should be about toys, popsicles, and the tooth fairy. I said, why the tooth fairy? He goes, well, I think that she's angry with me right now. I said, what do you mean she's angry with you? Well, he's just, he lost 4 teeth. And the last tooth that he lost, I forgot to put money under there. So he was searching all over his room. So I hid the money in my shorts and I ran upstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh, he was hiding under SpongeBob.
Yeah.
So he opens the baggie with the money. He goes, oh my gosh, she is mad at me. And I said, why? Well, last time she gave me $8 and this time I only got $5.
Whoa.
So he felt like he was ripped off.
$8?
$8, I know.
Not like a quarter? We got like $1 of quarters.
Well, hey, you know what? $5 for at his age, I thought would be good, but apparently I'm behind the times.
Inflation.
Yeah. Well, I told him there's something called a recession, and she's out of work. She's only moonlighting, working part-time like mommy. Yes. All right. So I wanted to just mention to you a hot topic today that really caught my eye in the news. Did you hear about the Little League story down in Georgia? 2 adults, parents, fathers, got into a brawl. It was all caught on tape. But I thought the good news out of it, even though these guys are now facing legal action, was that the kids then went through the line and did their high fives and congratulations and then all ran off to go play.
It's amazing how often that kids set the example for the adults.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I posted it on Facebook, and Jamie said, just because you have some years on you does not make you a grown-up. So true, isn't
Amen
it?
to that.
Well, something that we're trying to do on the show is to offer people stories of inspiration and hope. And a friend of mine called me the other day, and he said, I have a friend that I really think you should meet, Angie, because he has such an amazing story, and he has overcome so much, and I think you guys would really click. So we caught up with each other on the phone, and we started chit-chatting, and I was just blown away. And I'd had a cancellation for a guest today, or someone move. And so I said, I'd love to have you on tomorrow. And his name is Mike Esparza, and he's a 25-year radio vet. He spent 18 years of those broadcasting the Mikey Show in San Diego. So I used to I used to anchor down there. So he actually knows a lot of my friends. They're on his Facebook page. I thought it was rather coincidental. It was meant to be, Paul. It was meant to be. Well, his show has been heard in more than a dozen cities, which is more than I can say for myself, that's for sure. It's much more successful, I can see here. He's partied with rock stars. I've never done that either. I don't even party with rock stars. I've never done that.
I party with Christian rock stars. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. That's a little slower lifestyle.
Yes.
He says he's lived life full throttle, and having spoken to him, it's true. And in 2004, everything pretty much changed in his life. So, Mike, I'd love to introduce you to the audience. Hi.
How are you, Angie?
I'm great. I'm so thrilled to have you. I'll bet all your San Diego listeners are happy to hear your voice again.
Yeah, I hope so. It's been a very long time. It feels like since I've been on the air, but I'm really excited to be on your show and to have my listeners be able to tune in on the internet.
Well, I was impressed when I logged in and said that you'd be on the show. I got inundated with messages from your peeps saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, where can I hear him? Is he on iTunes? Where can I get Mikey?" So I thought, wow, this is really cool that you're able to share your story with my listeners here in Denver and your listeners in San Diego, where I used to be at the Fox station there.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. My listeners are called M1s. We call ourselves M1s.
M1s.
There's a lot of them, and they can basically change policy in the United States if they decided to, because they're just they're very loyal, and if they get behind a cause, they will raise good money for good causes and do some pretty amazing things. Last year, my son, we were doing a lot of work for Children's Hospital, and we were able to raise $50,000 last year for Rady Children's Hospital.
Oh, that's awesome, Mike.
Because of the listeners. They're just so awesome.
Oh, that makes me feel good on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it should.
Your listeners can call in a bit, too, because what we thought we'd do today after, you're going to tell us your story in a minute, and people can call in, San Diego, Denver, wherever you are. If you're listening in Paris and the Netherlands, please feel free. The number is 303-477-2473, and we'll probably take calls in a while after we talk to Mike for a bit here. And Mike, I just thought that it was interesting that, I don't know if you know this, but you and I kind of left our jobs at the same time under similar circumstances. I don't know all the details, nor do I need to know it, but I also was in the business of TV over 20 years, you over 20 years. It's just weird how our lives kind of collided at the same time. It was just very auspicious, shall we say. Now, when we talked about, you telling your story, you turned me on to some really awesome music that I'm going to play in just a minute here while you're talking. But tell me a little about that, because it's very moving, and how that inspired you.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I just got this feeling from the Holy Spirit that there was going to be some really cool things that could be done by moving people. And I've always said on the air, if I wasn't on the air, I would have loved to have been a movie director. And part of the thing that I love about motion pictures is how they can move people so much through the acting that you're seeing on the screen, but also the music that you're hearing in the background. And so, although what I'm doing isn't acting, the music is certainly moving, and it does help the story. I just found that it does. And to do it, I've done it a couple of times without using the powerful tool of music. It just doesn't feel right.
We talked just before the show started, as I was driving in, you and I talked about our testimonies, your story, my story. They're very painful, but I don't have any pain anymore. Like, when I think back on it, I feel just fine, and I feel like the gift of my faith has really helped me overcome all the things that I went through, mostly as a kid. And but when I actually give my testimony, it's shocking how it does bring up old emotion that I do not feel on a daily basis, and I feel so free of it. But then when I tell my story, it just kind of erupts some of that old emotion that I had maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah, and it can hit you. We discussed how it can really hit you in a different way each time you do it. Sometimes I'll do my testimony and something may not touch my heart a certain way, like it will the next week or the week before that. But one thing's for sure is that it's always an experience for me too. Because it's hard to tell the story. It's hard to.
It's so true. That is exactly. But I want to say one thing before you do tell your testimony, because I know, having heard it, how many people you're going to touch today. And before we get into the meat of it, I just want to say that I got a note from a woman's husband, and he wrote to me and said, "Angie, my wife heard your testimony at the Cherry Hills Women's Retreat about a month ago, and she was very touched by it. And I want to support that positive message, and I want to be one of your sponsors. And you know what? I don't even care if he sponsors me. That made Mike my whole day. That the woman that he's married to was so touched. So I wrote to her, and she said, hearing your testimony changed my life, and it started my healing. And that made my day. So today, you're going to make some people's day.
Yep, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think you put it perfectly. A testimony is somebody's story. And, there have been people in my life that just can't understand why I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And they can come up with all sorts of different reasons why I shouldn't think the way that I do. But one thing they can never take from me is my testimony.
Mm-hmm.
My testimony belongs to me, and it's my it's kind of my evidence. It's really the only evidence that I think you need. This is my story. This happened to me, and that's why I think it's so powerful and moving, because I can tell you firsthand what my experience was. So that's why I think it does that.
Well, and I think, I'll just let you get right to it. But I think that for me, for someone that's reached your level of success, you've had an extremely successful career in radio, and that you were battling all of this during the course of all of that, even going on the Howard Stern show. So go ahead and start where you feel comfortable starting.
Well, like we said, it isn't an easy thing. It's never an easy thing. I've given my testimony over and over again, and I think that every single time it feels like I'm doing it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And, the reason for that is, the reason it's so hard for me is because I have to admit a lot of things from my personal life that are very painful. The fact that I was sexually abused when I was 5 years old.
And that's a tough thing for men to talk about and admit.
Yeah, it is.
Anyone.
Yeah, it is. And I think that there's probably a lot of people who have that experience that have never told anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that is that's the root. It's a secret. And secrets can be really destructive, in a lot of ways. They're like getting into a car accident.
That's true.
Or a motorcycle accident. You're dragged across that pavement, and that pavement gets under your skin, and then it heals over. But perhaps it was never really cleaned out completely, and it still hurts if you touch it just right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one that hurt. It hurt my entire life, and I tried to stuff it away, and I didn't address it, and I didn't talk to anyone about it, but it made me fearful. And so I grew up when I was 5, going into my teenage years, very scared. If there's one thing that I can share with your listeners today that I think can be more helpful than anything is knowing that anger isn't a real emotion. Anger is an emotion that we have that masks 3 very real emotions, and that's hurt, sadness, and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Angie, when your kid runs out into the road and you go and you grab your kid and don't you do that. What are you really?
Fearful.
You're fearful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I came from. I was very fearful. I was very sad. And I was pretty hurt.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned to me that you didn't even know what it was, the abuse, but you knew that it was...
I knew it wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it wasn't right. I wasn't capable of understanding the complexities of it, but I knew that it wasn't right. And as I was growing up, my parents, I was the youngest of 4 boys. By the time I came along, my parents were tired. They were very tired, I think, and I may have not had the attention that the other boys had, my 3 older brothers. And I remember that they were doing the job that they felt they were capable of doing in terms of raising me, but sometimes it would go south. They wanted to motivate me to get better grades, and so the way that they would do that is they tell me that I couldn't go with them to visit my oldest brother, Mark, in Tucson, where he lived, if I didn't get the good grades.